Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Insurance Explained with Andrew Perlin. Listen, today I want to talk about something that causes a lot of confusion in the insurance world, and that is rental cars, borrow cars, who's actually covered when something goes wrong. Because one of the most common questions I get from my clients are, am I covered in the rental situation? Or if my friend borrows my car, what happens in that situation? Or maybe it's like, hey, my son's home from college. Is he covered? Is he not covered? And honestly, most people are very confused about how insurance works in these situations. A lot of people assume insurance simply follows the driver. Other people assumes it's the car. The truth is it can involve both. This becomes another example of what I've been calling lately the illusion of coverage. Assuming that you're covered until something actually happens, and then you realize that you're not covered. So today I want to simplify this and walk you through some of the common situations involving rental cars, borrowed cars, permission drivers, so you understand what actually happens behind the scenes. Now, generally speaking, auto insurance primarily follows the vehicle first. That's the basic rule. Meaning, if someone borrows your car and they get into an accident, the insurance that's on the car is going to be the primary policy responding to the claim. Okay. So the rule of thumb is basically the insurance that's on that vehicle is going to be primary. If that's not enough to cover it, then the driver's insurance will kick in and hopefully cover the rest. Now, that's an important concept. When you lend your car to somebody, you are actually lending them your insurance. Now, there's another important issue that people don't think about. How often is someone driving your car? This is very important to understand because someone who occasionally borrows your car, that's one thing, but someone who is regularly driving your car, that's something else entirely. So what's the difference? I borrow your car just once and I get into an accident, the coverage on the vehicle will extend. And if I have coverage, my coverage will be secondary. But if I'm consistently driving your car every day, a couple of days a week, the insurance company is going to want to know about that. And more often than not, that person is going to have to be a named driver on your policy, even if they have their own coverage. So if you are in that situation and they get into an accident and they're not a named driver on your policy, there is a chance that the insurance company might not pay the claim at all. That's why it's really important to properly list all the household drivers and people who use your car regularly on your policy. I see this a lot with kids who just get their license. It's expensive to insure a youngster. I get it. Nobody wants to do it. And you're like, well, they're not going to drive the car very often, so therefore I'm not going to put them on. That's fine if that's how you want to play it. If they do drive your car and they get into an accident, you're going to have a problem. Okay. Another thing they have to worry about is, are they excluded? Are they not allowed to be on your policy? I'll give you another example. I have a daughter who owns her own car. She still lives with me. Because she lives with me, her insurance company wanted all the drivers in my family to be on her policy and vice versa, right? So she had to sign a letter basically saying that no one's going to drive her car. She excluded the entire house off her policy. The same thing happened to me. My insurance company still wanted me to keep my daughter on my policy because she lived with me. So I had to have her sign a letter excluding her from my policy. My daughter can't drive any of my cars, and none of the people in my household can drive her car. Because if we do that and get into an accident, there's no coverage because they are excluded. That is very important. And you have to really understand who you're lending your car to. You really want to make sure that they have their own coverage because their personal coverage will most likely be secondary in the event there's an issue. Are they excluded? Did you actually take the time to exclude them from your policy? If you did, they should not be driving your car. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about rental cars because this is another area that people often get confused. Okay, so every auto policy has the ability to put rental car on your policy. That rental car portion of your policy is only there in the event that you get into an accident, your car's in the shop, and now you need a rental car. And they'll give it to you for the limit, $30 a day rental car for 30 days, or $50 a day for 30 days, whatever it is. You can't use that particular portion of your insurance if you go on vacation and want to rent a car. That's just not what it's there for. Now you're getting ready to rent a car, and they're going to ask you, do you want insurance? Okay, you rent a car, you get into an accident, your insurance that you have personally will cover that situation. It'll cover the liability and it will cover the damage. Your coverage will extend to the rental car. So when most people hear that, they say, okay, great. I don't need to get the insurance from the rental car company. Let's talk about this for a second. What that rental car insurance will cover is, yes, the liability and yes, the vehicle, but it also covers the loss of use of that vehicle. Okay. So if that vehicle is in the shop and it's out of commission for 30 days, that's 30 days of rental income that they're not getting from that vehicle. So part of the insurance that they want you to buy is going to cover that portion. Your insurance, whether it's Progressive or Travelers or Cincinnati or whoever, will cover the liability if you hurt somebody and cover to fix that car. But what it won't cover is that loss of use. Okay. So you could technically be on the hook for that portion of money. How much money would that car have brought into that company if it was still on the road? Okay. Now, I've talked to a bunch of people about this over the years. They said if the rental car company can prove that this is the last car on their lot, like every car is rented and this car should be rented, but it's not because it's in the shop, then they're going to have a claim to make. That's where this would come into play in the event that you get into an accident on a rental car. All right. Another problem I do see with rental car is that people who are renting vehicles overseas, you got to be careful about that one. You got to make sure that your insurance will cover that. So that's something you definitely want to talk to your agent about or talk to the insurance company about before you go and do that. But domestically speaking, there should not be a problem with the exception of that loss of use. Another thing about rental cars, sometimes credit cards will offer some sort of protection for a rental car, but typically speaking, they're secondary coverage. Sometimes there are restrictions, sometimes there are vehicle types that are excluded. So just understand what's going on from that perspective as well before you just assume that you're covered because your credit card says they do. Right? Again, this is the illusion of coverage that we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks. And honestly, that's the biggest takeaway from this episode is that people assume there's coverage, but insurance is always about the details. We want to know who owns the car, who's driving it, are they listed, do they have permission? Was it for business or personal use? Is the vehicle overseas or not? All these details matters, and one misunderstanding can create a very expensive problem after an accident. That's why these policies reviews are really important. I can't stress it enough. Every 6 months to a year, whenever your policy renews, you really need to sit down with your agent and just figure out, does this policy still work? My life has changed. Let's review it, right? The thing is, your agent's not going to know unless you tell that person, here's what's happening. I'm working from home. I've got a company car. Can I lower my coverage? My son or daughter just turned 16 and they got their driver's license. When should I add them to the policy? They're away at school. They're 100 miles away. They don't have a car. Can I remove them? Things of that nature. Insurance is really complicated. So I get it. But that's why it's important to talk to somebody who really knows what they're doing. So before you lend your vehicle out to somebody, or before you rent a car, before your child comes home from college this summer, before someone moves into your household and starts driving regularly, ask the question first. Because at the end of the day, coverage does not always equal protection. And just because someone is driving your car does not automatically mean everything is covered the way people think it is. Okay. If your life has changed, your coverage should too. So let's review it. Hey, thanks for being here. I do appreciate it. This is Andrew Perlin with Insurance Explained. Please like and share at the bottom and send it off to anybody you think might want to hear it. Any comments, please leave it in the chat there and I will get to it as soon as I can. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye.